we'll get going here in just a little bit. Welcome again. This is our second series of our virtual roundtable meetings. This one, our training committee is going to be talking and going through stuff. Next month, we're going to do advancement, and the advancement committee is going to be there. So again, appreciate you guys taking the time. This will be recorded, and it'll be available for you guys to share and like and post out there. Doing this outside, beautiful weather tonight. We got this in before the snow and the rain, so that's good to know. Our thoughts are up at Camp Tahosa. The fire's up there. Camp's doing pretty well at the moment. Today was a red flag day, survived that one, so we're pretty excited about that. And most of it's going out there. The Boulder County and the firefighters been doing a good job up there. Again, we're Facebook Live with the Denver Area Council, Boy Scouts of America, and our second of our virtual roundtable series. So we're going here in just a few more minutes. Let people log on and get going. We're just now turning 6 o'clock. All right, just now, 6 o'clock for everyone turning in. My name's Dave Whitner. I'm the Director of Sports Services for the Denver Council. Hosting us tonight for our Facebook Live event. Tonight we're going to be focusing on training. We're going to give a few more minutes for people to log in and make sure they get their connections going. And then we'll go from there with our opening ceremonies. Welcome. A great night. Happy to be out here, enjoying the nice weather. No rain, no snow on us. We're excited for that. We'll get going in just a few more moments here. Again, thank you for joining us. While you're waiting, please like this and join the comments in there. Make sure you list your name and your unit number that you're representing so we can, again, keep track of who's watching this. And again, if you have comments, we won't be responding to comments tonight because we're outdoors and we don't have a full set of equipment. But again, appreciate the comments that you have, and we'll get going here in just about 1 minute. All right, tonight with us we have David Schmall from Troop 373, if I remember right, who's going to lead us in an opening ceremony. So David, we'll turn it over to you.
Will the audience please rise? On my honor, I will do my duty to God and my country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
So that was a great example of a one-person flag ceremony that could be used. A lot of times our scouts are asked to go do something pretty spontaneous, and they don't have the full troop or complement of people there with them. So that's a way that you can pull off and should do your good turn as a scout and open a meeting for out there and do it one person in there. The next thing that we need to get into is pretty much our BSA Safety Moment. And I think the one that I wanted to pull out today when we were discussing this is camp out safety. And again, with the retirement of the BSA tour permit system, a lot of people under the misinformation that nothing is required before you go camping. And really, that's the furthest thing from the truth. No longer is the council responsible for making sure you have the paperwork done, but your troop committee should be working hard to ensure that your paperwork's done. And again, there's a couple of things there's about 4 or 5 things that each troop needs to make sure that gets done. One, you need to make sure you have the appropriate documentation needed for your camp out. In my old troop, we used to call it the football, and our scoutmaster had a giant briefcase that would go on every camp out trip. and all the required paperwork would be in the football, so we called it. And again, that would be all the troop medical records, the individual medical release forms for the scouts, the permission slips for the scouts to go on the trip. Again, everything else that you need to ensure that you have the proper documentation, guidebooks, records, permission slips, all that information needs to be prepared, needs to be ready to go on the thing. Then you need to make sure that you have the appropriate training for the trip that you're going on. Does all the adult leaders going on the trip have youth protection training? Do you have your leaders with the appropriate CPR and first aid trainings for your thing? Do all the leaders have hazardous awareness training? Have you taken treks safely and ensure that you have the wilderness first aid or other first aid requirements depending on where you're going? Next part is planning is really important before you go on a trip. Do you know where you're going? Does everyone know where you're going? Do you have a plan to get there? Do you have the maps, license, permits, and program planning guide for what you're going to do up there with the scouts? Nothing's worse as a scout than showing up at a camp out. You get your tent set up, you go to bed Friday night, you get up Saturday morning, and everyone's standing around not knowing what to do, and there's the senior patrol leader and scoutmaster huddled in the corner trying to figure out what the program for the day is. So make sure you've prepared a plan for your camp out. And then you need to take care of the equipment. This is pretty simple for a lot of people, but do you have the plan for how many vehicles you're going to need to get up there? Do you have a vehicle that's big enough and appropriate to be pulling your troop trailer? And also consider, do you have the first aid kits and other equipment you need? And your final part of the planning going in there, do you have the appropriate emergency planning going in there? Trying to call 911 right at the moment is probably not the best situation. So do you know the non-emergency numbers for the fire department, police department? Do you know where the closest hospital is? Do you know where the closest urgent care is? What are you going to do if there's a lost scout or a injured scout? Do you have these things going on? So again, planning, you need to do this prior to you get to the situation. If you're just going to a simple camp out in a local state park, that's probably pretty easy because there's a lot of people to support you. But if you're going into the wilderness, going backcountry into a wilderness area or a long-term river trip, it makes things so much more difficult to do. So again, make sure you know your program. Those are all the little things that you need to do before you do it. The Boy Scouts have a nice trip planning checklist that's available online, and there's a whole bunch of other little stuff to get you through. So that's our safety moment today, and now we're going to go into our training section of this.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Rick Bird, and you're not, and you're lucky. And you may not be like me because I have a sign, and my sign says I'm not running for anything, but I just wanted a sign. So welcome to our training Facebook Live event. We're thrilled to have you with us. I generally start our training meetings off with a quote. My quote this evening would be from Will Rogers. It says, if you think you're a person of influence, try ordering somebody else's dog around. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you my good friend Claire Thorne. Claire is he's our vice chairman of the training committee. And Claire and I are going to be doing some of this tag team tonight, and hopefully have a good time with what we're doing. So, Claire?
Hi, Rick. Hi, Rick.
Hi, Claire. Claire, tell us, why did you get involved with scouting?
Well, I got in scouting because of my boys, but after my boys finished scouting, I wanted to stay in it so I could contribute to the training committee and make sure that all the Boy Scouts have trained leaders. So that's why I got involved, Rick, so that I can make sure that they got trained.
You can see we've done this a lot. We're highly professional at this. The reason I got involved with scouting is it had to do a lot with my boys being involved, as I suspect most of you did. But the training committee is a whole other story. I had been a Wood Badge course director, and after finishing up with a Wood Badge course, a lot of times they turn around to you and say, well, see you later, you're out to the pasture now. But in this case, someone approached me, some guys that I really appreciated, and said, Rick, we'd like you to take on a new job. And in a weak moment, I said yes to this job. So now I'm the training chair and have been for, this will be my 5th year of doing it. When we took this over, the council had close to 13,000 volunteers, and the number was less than 30% of those 13,000 were trained. So you can run those numbers. We had about 3,000 people trained, and the rest, almost 10,000 untrained leaders for their position. Some of that was technical reasons, but some of it was just they hadn't completed the training. We currently are at 50%. So visualize trying to turn an aircraft carrier. That's what we've been trying to do for the last 5 years, and we're pleased to say that we are at 50%. We're going to get to 60 before this thing is over. The reason I'm passionate about this is really pretty simple. None of us would turn our children over to a teacher that never could read, couldn't write, didn't know anything about mathematics, had never been to school. We expect our teachers to be trained. We wouldn't put our kids in any kind of a situation otherwise. Why would we then take anybody in our scouting movement that doesn't know anything about the aims and the methods of scouting? They couldn't explain that to you. They don't even know how to pitch a tent. Or maybe they don't know anything about Cub Scouts and why that's important and why we think that the character is an important part of Cub Scouting. Why would you let your children in front of a leader like that? Why would you let that person try to lead your kids? So it's become a passion for me. Every scout deserves someone that knows what they're doing. They deserve a good leader. So that's why I'm passionate about it. Claire?
Hi, Rick. I'm over here by you. So, you want me to tell you about one of the reasons why I'm involved with scouting is with the indirect successes that I've had. I remember one time taking a Boy Scout troop up into Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I learned through my scout training that I'm not supposed to put scouts in a hot air balloon. And so we were able to find a hot air balloon that wasn't going to cost very much, and we went ahead and broke the rule of not using hot air balloons. And when I got back down to Texas, where I came from, they came up to me and told me, "Thank goodness nobody got hurt in that hot air balloon excursion that you took the Scouts on." So I'm grateful for the Boy Scout training.
Hey, neighbor,
Oh.
what are you and Claire up to this evening?
We're doing a little training session here. Scouter?
Well, good. Well, I'm Rick's neighbor and you're not.
Well, neighbor, because of the COVID thing, we're having to do everything outside. That's why we're here. And so you look like a scouter.
Well, no, Rick, if you can't tell me, I'm also a passionate scouter.
I can tell.
Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions on training and the BSA?
Hey, that's why we're here. Ask all the questions that you want.
Okay, I'll do that. What is the most important training a scouter needs to take?
Hey, neighbor, I got this one. It's youth protection training. That's the most important one. It can only be achieved through focused commitment and everyone that's involved in scouting. So it's the mission of the Boy Scouts of America to maintain a culture with youth protection, awareness, and safety for all levels of the organization in the national, region, area council, and districts, and even down to the unit levels. Youth protection is required for all BSA registered volunteers and is a joining requirement. Youth protection must be taken every 2 years, and make sure everyone that you have to do that when you recharter each year.
So if you take youth protection training and get certified, then are you trained for Boy Scouts?
Youth protection training is the minimum training that an adult leader must take to become registered with the Boy Scouts of America. There are leader-specific training that all leaders of the Boy Scouts should take to be trained specifically for the role that they're serving in. Scoutmaster and Assistant Scoutmaster is a role that has very specific training, and the leaders all should take that. The training includes some short online classes and outdoor component. There's also specific training for almost every position in scouting, including almost every role in the troop, from the troop committee to the merit badge counselor.
One of the issues that we've had in the council is just simply getting our direct contact leaders trained. We have a Journey to Excellence standards that in order to reach the gold standard, those direct contact leaders, Scoutmaster, Cubmaster, and so forth, need to be trained. That was a nice slip of the tongue. The past couple of years, we've made significant impact on this and have seen a dramatic increase. In a lot of cases, what we found, however, is that people that think they're trained really aren't, or it's something that's become, as I mentioned earlier, it's a technical issue. They perhaps have two different codes, and we need to fix that, or they've done the training and it simply hasn't been entered. The other thing that seems to slip through the crack is hazardous weather training. In the Boy Scouts, we're definitely seeing that. We're required to have hazardous weather training in order to be a trained leader. So you might check your training just to make sure. You might show up as untrained, and in fact it's not that at all. You just need to spend a few minutes in front of the computer and get your hazardous weather training done. The other issue that's a little more complicated is the multiple registrations. We do run into this quite a bit, and the frustration for a council training team is that we have our district trainers who will often have 15 or 20 people that complete their introduction to outdoor leadership skills, and then they find out, I can't find this person in the system in order to update their training. And what's happened is they came over as a Cub Scout, they had a Cub Scout leader, they had a my.scouting.org gives you a number, and they didn't transfer that number over to their registration with the Boy Scouts. We can fix that. That can happen through the council office, or if you let your council, your district training chair know, they can help fix that as well. We do, though, have many leaders in different positions that simply haven't taken the time to do their training. We'd like to fix that. And if you notice, if you go to the my.scouting.org website, you'll find that on that website you can work your way around the thing. Just click and drag a few things, and you'll find that you can take all sorts of trainings. Many of them don't take much time. Some of them, some of the worst cases, it might take YPT, the youth protection training, might take you a little over an hour. But if you go to some of the smaller modules, you find they're not that long, and you can end up getting your training done.
Rick, right now is the perfect time because we're recharting all the units in our council. And it also is a good time to audit and review the training that's in each unit, like you just were visiting with us about.
You're right.
So, with the temperature cooling off and COVID-19 being part of our life, many people have now time to go ahead and spend a couple of hours or a couple of days, whatever it takes, to get their training and get it finished.
Hey Rick, are there any tips or advice that you can give units on training or improving operations?
That's a great question. Yes, there are. One of the best kept secrets in scouting, and those of you who are in this recharting process, listen carefully. There is a code that's called the Unit Scouter Reserve Code. Unit Scouter Reserve. It's 91U. We also have another code that's a College Scouter Reserve Code. If you have a young man that you've he's reached Eagle, or young lady soon to be, that's reached Eagle and wants to remain on as an assistant scoutmaster, but hasn't done the training, you can register them as a College Scouter Reserve. This should be, and catch this, this should be the first registration of a brand new leader. So someone comes over to your scout troop, they want to be an assistant scoutmaster, but they haven't completed their basic online training and they haven't completed their introduction to outdoor leadership skills. Register them as a Unit Scouter Reserve. And when they complete their training, move them over to an assistant scoutmaster position. Your numbers look better. You have them registered as that Unit Scouter Reserve, and then they have incentive when they do complete their training to add a court of honor to recognize them. Every scout deserves recognition. That's part of one of the things that we do with our young men and women, let's do it with our adults. You've completed something, let's make sure that you've done it. Like all leadership positions, YPT, the Youth Protection Training, is required. So you take youth protection training, register them as a college or as a unit, scout, or reserve, and then you're off to the races.
So actually, using this registration process for those, it's a good idea to make sure that it's a big deal in your unit. One thing you do is you recognize these people as they become leaders within their units and within their troop, and that can be done at Court of Honors. So you recognize the people that have advanced as scouts, but also recognize the people that have done the training.
Great point.
Wow, I'll be the first to admit that I'd not heard of the unit scout or reserve position, and I know my unit is not using it. I would guess that my unit has 19 assistant scoutmasters, and I would guess that only 3 of them have completed the training. Some of the training required is overnight training, and I heard that the training is not being conducted due to COVID-19.
That's not true, neighbor. The Denver Area Council was unable to offer outdoor training last spring, but just recently, in the last few weeks, we were able to do an introduction to outdoor leadership training in our council, and also we've got some coming up for training, outdoor training coming up for 2021, and those will be in the council calendar when those dates are. Dates are in there right now. You need to get signed up for it.
So what's next if I'm officially trained for my position?
Well, once you are trained, neighbor, there's a whole series of trainings that you can partake of. We'll be offering Wood Badge this coming spring. I happen to be the Wood Badge mentor. I'm looking forward to this. You have Tim Brackett's going to be the spring course director. I think Patty Nortman's in the fall. Whoever it is, it's going to be a great training. But the purpose of Wood Badge training, for those of you who don't know, is to get adult scout leaders together to experience the practice of scouting. They get to meet other like-minded scouters. They get to have share experiences, live together in the spirit of the Scout Oath. We also have Powderhorn training that'll be offered in 2021, upcoming. Powderhorn is for older youth and adults who would like to learn about conducting high adventure programs for troops. Need to scoot over? For troops, crews, and ships. And all of this information is available on our website, denverboyscouts.org, which is the Denver Area Council website.
Hey, neighbor.
Yes?
Just want to let you know the Boy Scouts of America also offers national training conferences annually. The training conferences take place at the National High Adventure Bases, Bechtel, Summit, Philmont Scout Ranch, and the Florida Sea Base. And the 2021 schedule is not quite out yet, but should be showing up before the end of this fiscal year.
Well, thanks, Claire. That is great information. I'll go and spend some time exploring the options. Are there any youth training opportunities available?
Neighbor, of course there is. The first step is for a troop to conduct Introduction to Leadership Skills for Troops. It's a great program. The purpose of it is to teach the scouts with leadership positions about their new roles and how to be most effective in reaching success in that role. This training can also be taught in person or in a newly available online training module. The next level training for youth is National Youth Leadership Training, known as NAIL or NYLT, and it's also an action-packed program designed to provide youth members with leadership skills and experience that they can use in their troop. It's an intensive one-week course for youth, but all the participants talk about it for the rest of their lives. Go ahead.
This is a lot of information, so where do I begin, neighbor?
Well, the first thing you need to do is to make sure that your training is updated and completed. If you work with your troop committee and complete an audit of your adult leadership of their training status of all the registered adults, committee chairs and if you have on your committee someone who is your trainer, have them look this up. And you as a committee chair or the scoutmaster or your chartered order rep can look at the MIDOT Scouting as a Key 3 person and can see where the training stands with each person. So start there, do an audit, find out who's trained and who isn't. Look at, if you need help, you can always contact our district training chairs. Each of the district training chairs is well versed in how to do this. And worst case, if you need to get me involved, I think I know a little bit about it, but the training chairs in the districts actually know a bit more. They're more hands-on. So start with your unit committee, then go back to, then you can work up the ladder from there. As a troop committee, I would develop a plan. In our unit, we've been blessed with a lot of volunteers, and one of those persons is in charge of doing our training. They contact everybody that's getting close to YPT expiring. They look at all of our assistants and make sure that they're up to speed. And again, at any point, if you need help, feel free to contact a unit commissioner, contact your district training chair, or you can contact me. Now, let me say this to you. Or I'm in, you have anything else, neighbor?
I'm done, neighbor.
Okay. Next month's roundtable, our virtual roundtable, is on Scouts BSA advancement. It'll be on Wednesday, November the 16th. And then I'll give you a closing comment. I chose to wear something tonight because our council boss, Dave, asked me, he's sort of the boss, he's our boss. The real boss is that other guy, Chuck. This is live too, this is being recorded. He's going to watch this. Chuck, you're really the boss. We just want you to know that. All right, so Dave asked me to say something as a closing comment, and I chose to wear some neckerchiefs tonight that were just a little bit different. And the reason is because I'm passionate about scouting. I've had some of the greatest experiences, things I never thought I'd get to do. I've gotten to do because of the friendships that I've made in scouting. And if you notice, these are World Jamboree Scout neckerchiefs, and they have these interesting knots that are called friendship knots. What happens at the World Jamboree is that the scouts all trade neckerchiefs, and it's a real sign of prestige if you got like 35 of these neckerchiefs on. Well, I didn't. But I had the opportunity because of the team that I worked with. I was doing some transportation back and forth, and one of my jobs was to go down to 12 Point Plaza at the summit at the World Jamboree, and I was to pick up a group of people and take them up to a luncheon that was up on top at the WP Point, what they call WP Point, Perry Park. And so I picked up this group of people, and sitting in the front seat with me was this really interesting man whose name was Paul Parkinson. I was immediately attracted to him just as a human. He was an incredibly pleasant human being. And I found myself saying, I wish I was as pleasant as this guy. But that's beside the point. Nonetheless, I took Paul all the way up to the top. They had lunch, and my job was to pick him up and take him back down. It was probably a grand total of 25 minutes in the car with these folks. Well, come to find out, coming back down, Paul was even more pleasant than he was before. He was Australian, and he had this wonderful Australian accent, really a nice man. I find myself thinking, I hope he likes me as much as I like him, because he's really a likable guy, and it's not fair that he has that incredible Australian accent. Well, Paul, before we get down to the bottom, says, Rick, I need to give you something. So he gives me a neckerchief, and the neckerchief is the white one with all the Australian stuff on it. And he said, this is a really valuable neckerchief in Australia, and he did it with that great, I can't mimic his accent, but he said, I'm going to give this to you, and everybody in Australia wants one of these. Well, I was really touched. And so I later said, Paul, I'll be getting back to you, and I found an equally good neckerchief I could give him. Come to find out, Mr. Parkinson was the recipient of an award that's called the Bronze Wolf. Now, I'm going to challenge all of you that are watching this and will watch this, look up the Bronze Wolf, because I had never heard of it and should have known about it, because we know about the silver beaver and the silver antelope and so forth, and the silver buffalo. The Bronze Wolf is the highest award that's given to a volunteer in the World Scouting movement. It's given by the World Scouting Committee. There have only been 135 Bronze Wolf recipients since it was implemented. The very first one was Lord Baden-Powell. So he was the first in 1935, and there have been 135 since. Paul Parkinson was the 2019 one of the recipients of the Bronze Wolf Award. So I was in the car. No wonder this guy was so likable, and he was an incredibly good guy, and he was a Bronze Wolf recipient, one of 135. So why do I like scouting? You get to do things like that, and then you get to meet kids like this David Schmall kid that's been sitting here putting up with us and all the goofy things we're trying to do. So with that, I want to sign off.
Hey,
and
Rick.
wish everybody the best.
Before you sign off, remind the neighbor to vote next month, will you?
Yeah, he needs to vote. You guys, be sure you send a note to this is the untrained scouter Tim back here. Send him a note. Tell him he needs to vote.
Thanks.